Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that will be analyzed today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, we'll go for my trade for the week first, then progress into the analysis shortly after. If there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis too, make sure you just skip ahead using the timestamps below. But I had a short this week on Euro USD, which I was stopped out for on Thursday. I believe I took the trade on Wednesday. This was the entry signal, took it on the 4H time frame, and I was stopped out on Thursday. However, I was ill Thursday and Friday, so I wasn't really looking at the charts too much. There was another entry signal for me to get back into the position, which unfortunately I missed. Hopefully we can get some retracement next week, which I'll touch upon in a moment. But price action was looking very, very good coming into the week. Really nice impulsive move. Price taking out some of these weaker highs. So I was looking for a pullback for price to continue to the downside. And then it looks like we have come back to retest some structure here, which would be my second place to get into the trade, which is what I was talking about on Wednesday during my stream. If this first entry fails, I'll look for the second entry, which did happen. And now we're seeing some downside. Of course, we haven't got the full move yet. I'm still expecting more downside. But yeah, I was unwell on those 2 days, so I wasn't really looking at the markets there. But next week, hopefully we can get some opportunities to get involved. So let's take a look at the DXY quickly. So regarding the DXY, regarding dollar, I'm still very bullish. I've been very bullish on dollar for the past 2-3 weeks now. We've seen mostly sideways price action, so we hasn't really seen a development on that bias, but I still am very bullish. I do think the market just correcting, moving sideways, pausing and getting ready for its next move. I've been talking about targets around 107, which is moving up to this daily swing high here, so just around 107. I do think that's our next key level, our next target for the dollar. We've had consistent higher highs and higher lows. As we can see here, I'm looking at another higher low being printed for, again, another push higher. Market keeps breaking through structure to the upside, and now I'm looking for a next move into that big level. So very bullish on the dollar. Really impulsive move to the upside as well, which is always a good sign. And now I do think we're just going through some healthy correction, looking for the next move. We've come back into some areas of support, demand, depending how you look at it. Price had a nice pause here around 105,400. Now we've tapped into that area, really nice reaction, breaking some structure on the low time frames. I do think now we can see the next move higher. So I'm expecting a lot more strength next week, a lot more upside for the dollar. So if we do take a look at Euro USD, which is of course the pair we look at first as always, if that's the case with dollar, we're going to expect the exact inverse on that on euro dollar, which is exactly what I'm expecting. Same price action as well. You can see the consecutive lower highs here. And again, I'm looking at another lower high forming. Of course, not confirmed yet, but I'm anticipating a lower high forming in this area. Retesting broken support, which is now term resistance, which was our prior swing low before we created this low. Nice pullback to retest that. We just about came into the 50% of our retracement of our Fibonacci, so really nice confidence in this area. Would be a nice place to enter, which is exactly where I'm hoping we can come back double top for next week. Look for another entry signal before we do get the move, because price is still quite corrective. We're still stuck in this ascending channel, which is what I'm looking at to be the correction. So we may potentially bounce one more time to the upside back into that area, and that's exactly where I'll be looking for entries. Same plan as last week to take it to the downside, and of course target these prior lows. I do expect further downside for euro. In all honesty, I do think we can come back to the daily lows here, just underneath 1.05. I do think there's a lot more downside to be had. Even if we don't get an entry signal there and we push further down, there probably will be another pullback at some stage. So there could be some opportunities to get involved even if we don't get this setup. But yeah, for me, Euro USD is looking very bearish. A lot of confluence is backing that up. Price action is looking healthy. So yeah, for me, it's just looking to get that entry, and I'm keen on 1.07300 as the location where I want to enter from. And then of course, I will be looking for my technical triggers to get me into the trade. But that will be the plan for next week for Euro USD, expecting a lot more downside. Let's see if we can get another retest of that area. And targets for next week, we'll just focus on this low for now, around 1.06200. Okay, so onto dollar yen. So dollar yen extremely bullish, as we can see across the board for the yen pairs. Yen is very, very weak. Difficult to trade this one. I've been talking about areas of consolidation which we could be looking for a retest, and we've had some really nice areas of consolidation and some nice breakouts from these areas, but no real convincing break and retest of these areas. And these are really, really nice levels where we consolidated, had really nice impulsive breakouts, which is a key thing I say when you're looking for your breakouts. Make sure it's impulsive, normally give you the best setups. And we've seen impulsive breakouts each time, but unfortunately no real retest of these areas. We're pretty close over here, again pretty close over there, and of course even if we did, it's difficult to catch the trade because the way the yen pairs are moving at the moment, it's like we're spiking down, and then if you're not catching the low of the spike, price is then just shooting up. So unless you're on the lower time frames, like 5 minute, maybe you can find some pullbacks after the spike, but it's very, very difficult how they're been moving. And as we can see, finishing off the week, dollar yen is looking very, very bullish. So in terms of market structure, keeping things simple, this is the only area which I would look to buy from. As you can see, brief consolidation there, really nice break to the upside. A retest of that area most likely will give us some type of bounce to the upside, or we completely fight back to highs potentially, but that's up to you to manage your trade how you see fit. But for me, dollar yen, it's a very, very convincing uptrend. So as a trader who looks to flow the trend, the only thing I'm going to do in these conditions is looking to buy. I know this is very overbought. It's at some high prices right now. It could be looking to retrace, and people will be looking to short that. They can do that. For me, I'm definitely still very much a bull, but of course I do need to see a healthy pullback for me to actually take a trade, and I would need it to be at least to 155, 500 area before I can do anything. There's some nice areas here which are still valid, which all could still give us some nice entries, but we need to get there first. So for now, we'll be looking at this area. Again, the market is quite overextended, so I do expect to see retracement at some point, but I'm not going to be the one to find that out with taking any shorts. I'll be waiting for the market to come to me, and then I'll look for my opportunities. But yeah, dollar yen still very bullish. High time frame targets, we're very close to 160. 160 is a very big, significant region for dollar yen. You can see this is the 160 area. The last time we were here, big melt to the downside, and now we're very, very close to that level. So 160 could be the price dollar yen is working towards before maybe we see a significant reversal. So I would keep 160 in the back of your mind at the moment. Big psychological level as well. But yeah, definitely looking at some pullbacks, and this is the only area that fits my interest. So we'll be waiting for some meaningful pullbacks for dollar yen, but still expecting more upside. Okay, so next up we've got dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, another dollar pair. As you've seen, I'm very bullish on the DXY on the dollar. So a pair like dollar CAD, I'll be expecting more upside, and I do. Looking at structure on dollar CAD, we've seen some, I was going to say healthy uptrend, but it's not that healthy. It's been quite corrected. But recently we saw a really convincing move to the upside, and now I'm looking at this as the pullback of that move. We'll come back into, I think, 0.618 of the Fibonacci, or close. We come back into the 50, so we've come back into a nice area where we've seen a good depth in the pullback, and now we're respecting prior resistance, now turn support. Really strong breakout, never a retest previously, now there for the first time. So I do expect this level to hold. I do expect to see some type of move higher. Will we get back to the high here? Again, potentially. It may be a move that we get halfway and come back down again, so make sure you are managing your trade accordingly. But I am bullish. I do think there is more upside to be had for dollar CAD. Overall, we're still in a big range. We do have this massive level resistance above us, which price could be looking to go and test before a big sell-off. So there is reason for us to go higher, to go test that big level before maybe price does want to have that big move back down if it wants to reject it, or even break through as well. But dollar CAD still seeing higher highs and higher lows, no significant breaks in structure yet. So I still have to be bullish according to my analysis, according to the way I view the market. So last week I was talking about two areas where we can look to buy dollar CAD from. This was one of them, and this area here. This area didn't hold. Now we're testing the second one, so let's see what this level has to offer. Already seen a nice reaction towards the end of the week, so potentially you could see price come back, double bottom, similar to what I'm looking at on Euro USD, which is a double top. and then we get the continuation in that direction. So yeah, with dollar CAD, I'll keep a close eye on 1.365. We're trading at that area now, so early next week, keep a close eye, wait for some more rejection, shift in momentum. And this does look like a really nice level to catch some buys, and the risk reward looks very good as well if you can push it back to that resistance level around 1.383. So yeah, dollar CAD expecting more upside. Let's wait for some entry signals, but still very bullish on dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, I'm expecting more downside. I was pretty bullish coming into the week, but things have changed due to the price action. We had a really nice impulse to the upside coming into this week. However, I was looking for impulse, correction, impulse to see a bit more correction in that bearish move down to tell us that, okay, we're struggling to move down. Buyers are still holding the market in that upward trend, upward direction, and we're likely to see a continuation of that bullish move. Didn't see that happen this week. We got an impulse up followed by impulse back down, which is looking like a inverse V-shaped pattern. And this typically is a reversal type pattern. So I will be expecting continuation in the opposite direction, which would now be to the downside. The fact is I was looking for price to hold this level as support. Never really happened. Briefly, yes, but price cracked through that level pretty easily. And now we're looking very, very bearish and scaling to the high time frames as well. It does look like the market's printing another lower high, one over there, second over there, and potentially third. And if that is the third lower high, you can expect to see price make its way back to the lows there and potentially break through them as well if it wants to create a lower low. So there are definitely some signs from a top-down perspective as well that we could be seeing more downside now for Euro Pound. And the fact is we've cracked through some major support, which was this area here, and also the nature of the price action as well, impulse, not a good sign. So there's a lot of factors lining up for more downside for Euro Pound, and a smart place for some entries, a smart place to take advantage of this opportunity would be a pullback into this area here, 0.858, 859. Smart place for some entries because it is a very sturdy level of resistance as we've seen previously, sort of like a big head and shoulder pattern, if you will. So looking at the left shoulder there, the head over there, and then possible right shoulder. Maybe not the cleanest pattern in the world, but it still kind of fits the picture. And in terms of support, really, really strong level of support here. 1, 2, 3 distinct tests of that level, and has been very sturdy as well. So that would be a smart place for a take profit. But yeah, Euro Pound expecting more downside this week. Wait for some retracement for some smart entries. And then yeah, expecting a further drop back into the lows. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this pair. Like I said, I'm very bullish on dollar, but Aussie dollar isn't clean. It isn't clean at all. Euro USD looks clean. Dollar CAD looks fairly clean as well, and I'll touch on a couple of other dollar pairs coming up later, so stay tuned for that. But Aussie dollar isn't really one of them. I'm looking at this consolidation, and I said coming into the week, I do want price to stay below this consolidation and use it to retest, similar to pound USD, which we'll get onto soon. And then I'll be expecting more downside, and I'm looking at targets back down to that low. So that was the analysis coming into the week. But now you can see we've closed back inside that range. And this, if anything, is looking more like a big fake out rather than a breakout. And if that's the case, we could easily use this as support and continue back to the high of the range. So although I do expect more dollar strength, I can't really be looking for shorts on Aussie dollar to take advantage of that dollar strength, because the price action of Aussie dollar doesn't make sense according to that bias. If anything, I would be bullish on Aussie and expecting strength on Aussie against the dollar. But we shall see, because again, nothing's 100%, nothing certain. Price could easily come back below this area, start looking at being bearish again, and there could be some nice shorts for me to take below that area. But for now, we're stuck in that consolidation and close back above. So if you are looking to trade Aussie dollar, I think this support level is a really smart place for some entries. Because yes, if it doesn't hold, you take a stop, your price breaks out. If it does hold, then you're probably looking at a really healthy risk reward. If you do make it back to the high of the resistance around 0.662, that is a nice place for some longs as well. And of course, my bias on dollar could be wrong as well. We could see a very, very weak dollar and Aussie dollar push up as well. So nothing's guaranteed, but the bias I have on the dollar doesn't really correlate well right now for Aussie dollar with current price action. In fact, we're still trading inside this consolidation here as well. We do need to break out before I can start looking to short it again. So yeah, with Aussie dollar, smart place for some longs at the low of the range. You can see a lot of rejections here. So a nice place to look for some more rejections and some entries. And then targets back to the high of the range. Looks very attractive as well, and the risk reward looks pretty good too. So yeah, Aussie dollar, if we do hold the low of the range, expecting upside, expecting a bounce at least from the 0.648 level, and targets around 0.663 do look like a pretty smart place to take some profits. Okay, so coming on to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD is another opportunity which I missed this week. Like I said, wasn't really looking at the markets towards the end of the week. We did see a nice pullback. I talked about two areas where we could look for some entries for NZD CAD last week. I said if we can see price push further to the downside, then this becomes a nice place for a short. Didn't quite see that. Market opened up bullish for the week, and we kind of just consolidated, and we got a deeper pullback. And I said this will be our second area of interest, coming back into that zone there. We tapped into on Thursday, would have been a nice entry signal there to take it to the downside, a really nice shift in momentum. I mean, price is not too far from my entry, but you can see that would have been a nice place for an entry on the retest of that area. So with NZD CAD, the bias is still the same. Coming to the week bearish, coming to next week will be bearish as well. I'm still looking at price coming to the low. If I expand to the daily chart, we've got this kind of slow, sluggish, bearish trend still at play. I know we have kind of broken out of this descending channel, but we haven't taken out structure. Market still held. Let me just use the line tool because that was an awful line. As you can see, we're still holding that lower high. We haven't broken through, and since then the market has now been printing lower highs as well. So I do think there's a very good chance we'll make it back to the lows here at 0.79758. I'm just looking to keep shorting as long as we maintain that bearish structure, which is intact at the moment, as we can see on the lower time frames, lower lows and lower highs. Nice pullback this week. In terms of entries for next week, I'm looking to see if we again pull back into that area, double top it, and get a nice sell-off from that area. Stop loss above the high, and again targets into that low. Like I said, I do think we can go further, but I think for next week we just talk about this low here. We're still looking at a pretty meaningful move if we do come up 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 risk to reward potentially, which is really good. So yeah, NZD CAD going into next week still bearish. Looking to see if we can get another retest of that area, double top it, and then have that sell-off. As long as we don't break structure, as long as we don't see something like this, I'm very bearish on NZD CAD and looking for price to come and test those lows at 0.8064 next week. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So it's been a bit choppy for pound NZD, but my bias on the higher time frames hasn't changed. As you can see here, we still do have the inverse head and shoulder. Let me mark it out. So left there, head over there, right shoulder over there, break of the neckline, this being the neckline. So previous resistance, now turned support. And if I remove this out the way, you can see this week's candle, very interestingly, big wick to the downside, just about taking out that low, pulled back and closed more or less as a doji still. But the fact is we had a really aggressive wick to the upside, which is what I said I didn't like last week, which is why I wasn't really a big fan of buying pound NZD this week. But after the big wick we had to the downside here, it's showing us that we're still showing respect to this area as prior resistance, now support. We're still holding that level, and I do think we can see a continuation of that. See the next higher low, 1, 2, potentially 3. So I do think there is a good chance we could see some more upside for pound NZD, at least back to the highs here. And then if we can break through them, I'm looking at the high over there. So that's really the thought process with pound NZD in that higher time frame direction. Bringing it back to the 4H time frame, we can see we do have this trend here, 1, 2, looking at the third higher low. In terms of entries, you would want to see price come back down again, at least into this area here, test the trend line, test this prior low, maybe even spike through as well, grab some liquidity below the low, and then that might send us on our way. But generally speaking, this is the area I'm looking to get engaged with on pound NZD and take some longs, because right now it's a bit of consolidation really, equal highs, equal lows. So I'm not really trying to engage in the market in this kind of area here. I want to be at the extremes, below the consolidation, try and anticipate the next higher low in the sequence. So this is the smartest place for me to buy. I don't really want to be engaging the market in here. It's quite corrective, middle of nowhere, very very high chance of getting stopped out randomly on a random wick somewhere. So yeah, I do want to see price come lower first for pound NZD, but the higher time frames are looking very bullish. So we do have a lot of confluence stacked to favor more upside for pound NZD. It's just up to us, up to the market to give us the entry and us to take the entry when we get it, should we get it. So yeah, pound NZD looking at entries around 2.09 coming into this area of confluence, and yeah, targets for next week, keeping it very, very simple. Back to the high of the range at 2.116. If we can break through that, we can go a lot higher. Like I said, talking about the highs over there, and we can discuss those kind of opportunities next week if we get the breaking retest, so on and so forth. But for now, we're looking at push back to the high at 2.119, and that is what I'm expecting going to next week for pound NZD. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So another yen pair, and again, as you can see with the conditions, we are looking very, very, very bullish. Major targets we can be talking about, definitely up here at 122. We're still very, very far away from that, so we can't really discuss too much about that level. That could be where CAD Yen is slowly working its way towards. You know, we have already taken out a major high over here, so that's kind of the next major target you would have for CAD Yen on the monthly chart. So it's a realistic place where you can expect price to potentially get to, but again, we're still very, very far away from that. We're probably going to have, you know, quite a few pullback before then, maybe some shorting opportunities as well. So I won't speak too much upon that. Even dollar yen has some distance away from 160, so as you can see, we're quite far away. But the current conditions are still very bullish, so all I'm looking to do in these conditions is just looking for buying opportunities on some nice healthy pullbacks. Same for dollar yen, same for CAD yen. The rest of the yen pairs, we've kind of blown out the consolidation, and we're really flying now. So with CAD yen last week, I was talking about the consolidation here. I said I want to see price at least break to the upside, and then I can look for some pullbacks to retest the range. Never really happened this week, unfortunately. Price broke out and just kept pushing, and then Thursday, Friday, you know, we kind of exploded there. So the only areas which are sufficient for me to be taking some entries are 114, 113, 950, 114 we'll call it. Yeah, this is the area which makes the most sense, and it's actually an area that I can take some entries, unless you're on the lower time frames, and sure, maybe you can be looking at these areas here as well. And that's a nice consolidation in the hourly chart. But for me, looking at the full H, you know, I have to wait for some bigger pullbacks here for CAD yen before I could partake in any longs. And targets, you know, back to the high. Let's say if we, you know, start pulling back from here, then that will naturally be the high I would target. Of course, I'll be trading my stop loss, so I'll be traded out wherever the market trails me out. But in terms of a take profit, then back to the high is a pretty sensible place to have. We have a lot of momentum in the market right now, so you know, expecting that momentum to continue is not such a crazy guess or expectation. So yeah, with CAD yen looking for more upside, keep an eye on 114. If you're in the lower time frames, keep an eye on 115. But I do expect more upside for CAD yen next week. Okay, so over to pound USD, another dollar pair. This one's looking good for some shorts. We pull back into a really nice area, which is the low of the consolidation. So if I quickly draw out the consolidation quickly, this is the consolidation I'll be talking about for a while. Big fake out to the upside there, nice break to the downside. And now it looks like we're coming back to retest the low of it. And again, if we can hold this level, I do think we can see a lot more downside. Similar to Aussie dollar, which we spoke about not too long ago, where we had the consolidation breakout. However, with Aussie dollar, we've broken back inside the range, which is for me a bit of a red flag. We can always break, you know, have another breakout and get some nice shorts after. But if we break back inside the range, then I'm looking at this being another fake out, similar to the one we had over here, which would then I'll be expecting upside, which is not really my plan at the moment. I'm very much a dollar bull, so that's the direction I want to be trading in, which will be shorting pound USD. So I'm looking at shorts coming into this area. Already seen price come into that level and reject it quite well. I'm not a big fan of this wick here, although we could go fill the wick, I'm not a big fan of that wick here. So I'm actually hoping that next week we can open a little bit bullish, spike through the area to kind of cancel out this wick, and then give me some entries to take this short to the downside, because this wick here is pretty big and it's kind of showing a sign that price is failing to push lower. So I want to see a sign that price is now failing to push higher, maybe taking out some liquidity above some highs there from last week, still reject the level of course, and then maybe I can get my sell to the downside. So of course the way I trade is, you know, looking at zone to zone, but I also need to study the price action at that zone to see if it's sufficient enough to take any entries. Right now, coming to that level, I'm liking the rejection already seen previously, so it's good. The market is respecting that level. We're not just breaking straight through. Now I need to wait for an entry signal next week. Again, looking for price to come up, double top it, potentially give us a nice big wick, and take my shorts and targets. Again, no brainer, back to the prior low. Of course, there's some other areas you can target, like this low here, if you want to get out a little bit quicker. But I do expect the trend to continue, because again, if this is the breakout and price is now having the retest of that area, you know, you'd be expecting the trend to continue, and you know, targets down here look good on the daily chart. You can see the lower highs here, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm looking at the next one there as well. So let's see if we can stay at the low of the range and not break inside of it. There's a chance, of course, we could fake break inside and break back outside. The market's not perfect, but as long as we don't see, you know, strong daily candle closes above the area, then that's what would talk me out of taking some shorts. But for now, we are rejecting that level. Let's see if we can keep that up, find some entries at that 1.253 area. Then we'll be looking to short back to 1.23 next week. Okay, so now over to pound CAD. So pound CAD bearish bias as well, similar to pound USD. I was talking about the consolidation here, looking for the retest of that before shorting. We have now pulled back into that area. Again, we've seen price react pretty nicely with it. So again, coming into next week, if we can push up, double top that, that would be a nice place for an entry. Stop loss above the zone. Again, looking to target the lows down here around 1.689, we'll call it, and continue this bearish move. Because again, if I do expand to the daily chart, we did get this push down, pull back, continuation, really heavy bearish momentum, just about taking out this low here, of course breaking structure. So I'm looking for another lower high, 1, 2, 3, and then a continuation to the low, and then we can talk about some targets afterwards. But yeah, with the price action we had on the daily, shorts are looking good, and now we've come back into a really nice zone. So looking for some more rejection early next week, find some entries, stop loss above the zone, and targets back to that low. So that will be the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so moving on to pound yen. So looking bullish, flying high. As said last week, I wasn't really interested in pound yen in this area. Don't want to trade it in the consolidation, but if we do break out and retest it, then that's something that does interest me. Never happened. Well, we did see the breakout, but not the retest. Then price flew to the upside, leaving behind this area here as well, which is also a really nice place for some longs. Should we see a pullback to that area, again, this would be my only level at the moment, and that level too, but again, we have to test that level first. So 195 is kind of the area I'm looking for price to pull back into. If you're on the lower time frames, then this area here does look good in the hourly chart. Nice brief pause there, sharp move to the upside around 196.500. Not a bad place for a pullback into, and again, some longs similar to dollar yen, similar to CAD yen. Again, the yen pairs are just very bullish right now, so we're looking for pullbacks, expecting continuations. If I do drop to the monthly, we have taken out this resistance here, or well, we haven't got the candle close yet, so we could still pull back and leave a big wick. So that is still a potential situation, but at the moment we are trading above that area, and I'm looking at some areas where we could be heading towards. I'm looking at this high over here, the high we had just before this massive collapse. That could be where price is gravitating towards, around 210 we'll call it. So again, similar to dollar yen, similar to CAD yen, you know, pound yen as well, we do have some upside targets in the higher time frames, which do make sense for price to potentially go and hit. So we potentially even could be seeing a lot more upside to be had with these yen pairs. Again, the trend is very bullish on multiple time frames. I'm not seeing any sign any signs of it slowing down. So looking to short it, I think is a really aggressive trade. Just look for your pullbacks, look for your longs. Much safer. Yes, you can still lose, but you're at least putting probability in your favor given the market conditions at the moment. So looking for pullbacks to these areas. 195 looks good. If in the low time frames, keep an eye on 196 500. Again, looking at similar opportunities, similar level, just waiting for price to reach those levels to start with, and looking for some entry signals at those levels, and again taking it back to wherever that high is. Say we pull back from there, and of course that would be the target I would have, or a trading stop loss, because again, given the conditions, we could really run. But yeah, pound yen still looking at more upside for next week. Okay, so next up we got gold. So gold's still very bullish on. I'm looking at the higher time frames for gold, and I'm only seeing signs for more upside. Yes, we're seeing some rejection, shift of momentum. So yes, we're probably going through a retracement, which you would expect for gold. We've been so bullish for the past few weeks now. A healthy retracement is due, but I do think that is what's happening. Just a retracement for the market to find its feet again and continue its next phase to the upside. I have spoken about possible retests of areas down here. If I go to the 4H, we can see a little bit better. So I have talked about retest of some of these areas. Again, still very far, so I'm not too sure we'll get a pullback that much. But if we do, I will keep an eye on that. So do keep a close eye on 2220. But I'm looking for more of a double bottom at this area here. Another drive lower, potentially breaking through it, and then using that as support to take us higher. Because as we can see, we've had a pretty strong move down, probably getting some early buys coming back into the market, and you can see how corrective the move is. Not really filling me with much confidence in the market is just going to suddenly push higher. It could do. There is a lot of bullish momentum in the market, but I think what would be a really nice opportunity is if you can see one more push down, possibly take out that low, come back and respect it, and I think that could be a really nice buy. I think we have come back into the 50% of this move if I get the Fibonacci out. So yeah, 50% is more or less in that area there too. So for me, this is a really nice place for a long, judging on the price action, of course, not just jumping straight in, and of course looking for a push back to where we came from, 24.20, and potentially higher as well. And of course I will keep an eye on 22.20 as well. Should we have a bigger pullback than expected, I still do like this area. I just don't think we'll have such a bearish move back down for gold, but I could be wrong. But yeah, my direction is definitely bullish for gold. Still seeing a lot of signs that momentum is still intact in the higher time frames, looking like just a pullback. So I'm looking for my buying opportunities around 2300 and 22.20 for next week. Okay, so moving on to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's still expecting more upside. I am still looking at pullback opportunities of the market to head higher. Keeping an eye on 52K. Should we break out of this kind of consolidation or flag, you can call it as well. If we break to the downside a little bit deeper than expected, I do think this is a really smart place to go long. Brief consolidation, sharp move to the upside, no retest of that area. I think this is a nice place for some longs. And I'm also looking at the retest of this low here around 60K, a retest of the low, the consolidation or flag. Again, kind of the same thing going on here. We've had a lot of bullish momentum recently. Market's kind of pausing. I do think we can see some more upside, but in terms of an area to go long from, I would be keeping it back to the extremes here of the consolidation of the flag. Don't really want to get involved in this mess here. Yes, maybe we start picking up momentum and structure clears up, then yes, there could be some nice longs there, but I think you're much better off waiting for price to come to these areas. Safer place for a stop loss, and overall risk reward is a lot more favorable as well. So focusing areas on 60K for some longs. Go to the daily chart and also focus on 50K there as well. Of course, we're probably not going to see a move back down to 50K by the end of next week, but it is an area where it will be a pretty nice place to go bullish should we see the necessary price action at that area. Same thing with the 60K level as well. So yeah, Bitcoin struggling to push higher, a few lower highs here, so some warning signs, but if we can find support there, I think it's a nice place to look to attack bullish. We may only push up halfway and come back down again, so that'll be up to your trade management, but I am still overall bullish from Bitcoin. We've seen a really nice healthy uptrend. I'm looking at this being the next bearish phase, next pullback phase for us to find our feet and continue higher. So that remains my outlook for Bitcoin next week. Okay, so last but not least, we've got Euro Aussie, which is our bonus pair for next week. So this one's looking very interesting. Again, looking at more downside for Euro Aussie. I do think the market is really struggling to try and continue higher, as we can see these lower highs previously, 1, 2. I'm looking at third one at this area here. You can see all of that wick rejection higher, multiple wicks into that same area. Prices tried to go bullish, especially with last week's candle. Strong bullish close there. We tried to push higher, but this week's candle had none of that, and prices closed below that, engulfing that area as well. So I do think there's a very high chance we're just going to see a continuation of this bearish structure, lower high being placed in potentially, and I'm looking at us continuing back into the low here at 1.62. And you can also view this as a nice head and shoulder pattern as well, that being the left shoulder, that being the head, the right shoulder printed over there, and of course this being the neckline here as well. So that's kind of how I'm viewing Euro Aussie at the moment, expecting a lot more downside back into 1.62. So there's two kind of situations I'm looking at. One's a little bit more aggressive than the other. The more conservative option would be waiting for that neckline to break, which aka this level of support, waiting for us to get below that, look for some pullbacks, retest, then taking some shorts according to that area. Or some slightly more aggressive opportunities, we'll be looking at the retest of this zone here as well, kind of continuing with this lower time frame bearish structure, looking to see if the market can pull back into that area, retest it and be on our way, and then anticipate price is going to break through this support and just get in early with a better entry, better risk to rewards, and expecting the same kind of continuation back to the prior low at 1.62. So this would be the more aggressive trade, reason being you're shorting into major level support. Of course, we are expecting that support to break, judging on the higher time frame price action, but again, it still might not break as well. We have to take that into consideration as well. Whilst if you wait for this opportunity, yes, you might not get the retest, price may break the level and just continue, but if we do get the retest, price has already broken through its strongest level, its strongest obstacle in our way. This is a really strong support. If we can break through that, there's not a lot stopping us getting back to this low here. So that's kind of my thought process with Euro Aussie. So safer opportunity, wait for the break of the low. Of course, may not see the retest, risk reward won't be as good than this opportunity, but it's much safer. So that's up to you, depending how you're going to trade it. But in terms of areas of entry, I'm looking at 1.641 and of course 1.63, and targets back down at 1.62. But judging from the higher time frames, it does look like we're printing that next lower high. So I'm very bearish on Euro Aussie going into next week. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, enjoyed it, informative, please be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure you do hit the bell whilst you're at it so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Leave a comment down below any pairs you're looking at going into next week. I am interested. But guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one.